Hi everybody, I hope you had a great week last week. I wanted to briefly talk to you about the handout that is in your material this week. For many people, yoga isn't just a way of movement, it is also a lifestyle. So what you have in your packet this week or material this week is a little bit about yoga ethics. These ethics are found in a text called the Yoga Sutras. So if those of you who are taking live classes, you may hear your teachers talk about the Yoga Sutras or even read or quote from them. The Yoga Sutras are kind of the first really like how to do yoga book, and yet they don't talk, or let me rephrase, they talk very little about actual physical movement. They talk a lot about the ethics of yoga. There are 10 principles in these ethics as they're listed on your handout. They're called the Yamas and the Niyamas. There are 5 of each. Some of these principles you'll be very familiar with, and your handout goes into way more detail than I plan on giving you. I just want to give you kind of a broad overview and maybe a little bit of history. So I'm going to pull up the handout so that I can see it, and I'll go over it with you. The first Yama, and let me say that Yamas are typically how you treat the world around you, your outside environment. Probably the most famous Yama is the idea of non-violence or ahimsa. Non-violence is what Gandhi based his entire movement on when he was trying to create an independent India. It's what Martin Luther King used in the civil rights movement. He modeled a lot of what he did after what Gandhi did in India. And nonviolence, in its first stage, in its very mediocre stage, is no physical or verbal injury to people. And I'm pretty sure your parents try to teach you this at a young age, right? The second stage is no harm to any creature. So this one gets a little bit harder for some people, but it's also where some people get the idea that all yogis are vegetarians. Clearly that is not actually true. People have very different dietary needs and desires. Some yogis do eat meat for medical reasons, and others choose not to, and there's a whole kind of range in between. So that's just a personal choice. But there are some great stories that come out of the mythology of India that talk about this idea of do no harm to any creature, particularly those things that make you like creep out. So for me, it's cockroaches, and I'm very happy that I have a cat and a son who likes to take care of those for me. But thankfully, the idea of doing no harm to any creature extends to all creatures. So think of those creepy, crawly things that make you go, ugh, and see if you can extend no harm there too. Just a little challenge to you. The second Yama is pretty straightforward. It's the idea of truthfulness. It's known in Sanskrit as Satya. The next Yama is asteya, or non-stealing. It's the idea of not taking what isn't yours. Again, your parents probably tried to instill this in you when you were young. And then it kind of goes on for a more kind of adult thought of not trying to get more than you need, or not wanting more than you need. That becomes a very interesting contemplation as an adult. The next Yama is actually misspelled in your handout, but it's correct in your textbook. It's a parigraha, which is the idea of non-possessiveness, not being greedy. It kind of goes in hand with the idea of not stealing. You can't want or try not to need more than you have unless you know what the difference is between a want and a need. Like, do you want a new pair of jeans because you just want a new pair of jeans, which there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to know the difference. Or do you need a new pair of jeans because yours have a hole in them or a big stain or something? Like, is it a want versus a need? Do you, I'll let you settle that for yourself. The last Yama, brahmacharya, is classically and originally defined as celibacy. This is usually where people say, screw that yoga stuff, or they get really excited. But the Tantrikas changed it to the idea of personal energy management, so that all your sensual pleasures get moderated. So if you have a big chocolate obsession, or that sense pleasure, of course, would be taste. If you always walk around with headphones on, that sense pleasure means you have a obsession with hearing. The idea would be to moderate anything that overstimulates you, right? So that those things become a treat and not something that you take for granted or become a distraction from the other things in life. Those are the yamas, all 5 of them. The niyamas, which are a little bit more personal, so it's how you treat your personal space. So the yamas are how you treat your outside space. The niyamas are how you treat your personal space. The first niyama is the idea of saucha. Now, when I was learning this back in college, when I was first beginning my practice, saucha was strictly the idea of being clean or having cleanliness. I can tell you right now, if you were to open my closet door, it would not be the cleanest thing in the world. Or if you look in the backseat of someone's car, or the junk drawer in your kitchen, like all those things. So the idea of saucha, and it's at very basic levels, the idea of being clean, or being neat, having things tidy. It's kind of the idea behind feng shui, even though India and China are not necessarily in the same place, but it's the idea that your physical space reflects what's going on in your mental and emotional space. So if you find that you have a hard time studying when you're in a messy space, our Eastern philosophy would say there's a reason for that. And either you have a chance to clean up the space before you study, or you take yourself to the library and find a clean desk to study on. They would also say that saucha also extends not only into the physical, but into the emotional and the mental aspects. The idea of, everyone has baggage, but how neatly packaged do you have your baggage, right? Or is your baggage thrown all over the place? So making sure you take care of the stuff that can weigh you down or make you more messy as a person. The next niyama is known as santosha, or the idea of contentment. Not to be confused with complacency, which are 2 totally different things, but truly being content and happy with what you have. And then learning from and having gratitude for even unpleasant experiences. And you know what? To be honest, as a human being and as an adult, sometimes unpleasant experiences, when you're in the middle of them, they just suck. I mean, there's no other word for them, they just suck. And sometimes you don't realize what doors they may open or what paths they may lead to until much later, and you can say, oh yeah, that happened so that this could happen. And you know what? Sometimes you never find the silver lining, and that's okay too. But these are some of the ideas of how you could take these concepts that you were taught as a child and expand them into a more meaningful or more challenging outlook as an adult. The next niyama is known as tapas. Now, if you live in a place like I do that has lots of tapas restaurants, tapas is not just small plates of overpriced food. Tapas is often defined as transformation. And let me clarify that for you. Tapas literally means to rub or to create friction. So the transformation happens when something rubs so much that you kind of shine the diamond, so to speak, or that you create heat. You change the element in some way. So in order for ice to melt, you have to apply heat. In order for that same water to become steam, you have to apply heat. Like, you have to create something in it that's going to make the molecules move faster or change in some way. So if you, when I started practicing in the early 90s, my mat in the corner said tapas mat, and you may still find mats that say that, meaning that when you step onto your yoga mat, something on that transforms you. You don't step off the same way. And that can be as simple as oh, my hamstrings feel better, or my back feels better, or you know what, my mind is not as cloudy, or you know what, I feel like I'm ready, I can actually sleep now because before I was just a little over anxious. And slowly over time, the stuff on the mat will keep rubbing, and the things that you do on your mat will keep rubbing, and then your practice will keep rubbing, and you'll find that towards the end, you'll keep changing and transforming, and it's kind of exciting to see what you can change into. The next Niyama is the idea of spadaya, or self-study. It's the idea of reflecting on your own actions. So it's like that Britney Spears song, Oops, I Did It Again, except not with all the like corny lines. So if you find yourself repeating patterns, this is the idea of spadaya. Or the Dr. Phil question of how's that working for you. You really to have the opportunity to take the pattern, observe it, and decide what you're going to do with it. Like, don't judge it in the middle of observing it. Don't say it's right or say it's wrong. Give yourself a moment to really establish and figure out what the pattern is, and then say, what am I going to do with this knowledge? Like, now that I know this about myself, and I really know this about myself, and I know what triggers it, and I know what the results are, and I've done it in this instance, in this instance, in this instance, what are you going to do with it? Right? The last Niyama is 2 words, Ishvara Pranidhana. It literally means surrender to a bigger purpose. And you can define bigger purpose for whatever that is for you, whether that's love or God or Christ or peace or hope or freedom, like whatever that is for you, whatever your bigger purpose is. And the idea is that your actions and your thoughts all become a reflection of love and service to this bigger purpose. That includes the movements that you do on the mat. That includes the time that you sit to meditate. That includes the time that you take to purposefully breathe, to calm yourself. Like all of this has a bigger purpose. And it's yes, you can stretch your hamstrings. Yes, you can make your core stronger. Yes, your arms can get well defined and all that. But in the end, why are you really doing it? What are you hoping to achieve? How are you hoping to better yourself as a person so that you can better help the world? So those are the ideas behind some of the basic ethics of yoga. I hope it gives you something to think about and to maybe view your practice in a little different way. Next week, I'll be back to talk about back bends, which can be very kind of complicated. So we're going to do small stuff slowly and keep in mind that more isn't necessarily better. So we're going to talk about some of the different sensations you might feel. All right, you guys, have a good day.